Welcome back to another video. Looking on the tippy tap, something caught my interest. It was an Italian blogger talking about cars. Sometimes I follow, sometimes I don't. But this time round is pretty interesting. It was talking about Chinese cars penetrating the Italian markets with an astonishing 6% so far this year. And it's forecast to rise to 10% only in Italy, and this could be a average trend throughout the European Union and so on. Why such success of Chinese cars? Well, they cost a fraction of those made in Europe. Same type of quality, more or less. That's why they're catching on. But once upon a time it wasn't like this 20 years ago. At that time the Chinese were making knockoff models for their market, you know, BMW, Land Rover, Fiat and so on. And obviously these people are manufacturers of the West. Somehow they discovered when it came to the case of the Daewoo Martins, which the Chinese done, their version. It was someone who sold a project, because Daewoo was sold to Chevrolet afterwards. That's another story. And there was a whole series of lawsuits against them for doing these things. And obviously in Europe there were brands of Chinese cars, not well known, like the Great Wall, which was a low cost pickup truck basically. And what did they conjure up with something you know, say you can't beat them, buy them. So in the last few years, some very known brands like Volvo, Mercedes, BMW and Volvo, I mention it, and there are other brands of vehicles which they bought. MG they bought for first years ago, and they started making their own cars, their own style, especially the Mercedes. There's more of those cars sold in China than anywhere else in the world put together like that. And obviously they have acquired technology, brand name, patents, and an advantage of Western markets as well. As well as doing joint venture projects with European manufacturers. What comes into mind is Dongfeng. I think they were bought by Stellantis, the same percentage, and then somehow they start producing engines for the group Stellantis in China and other parts of the world, but mainly a nice chunk of those engines produced are in China. And now the fact is they had, you say, how you can put it, the good idea is say, we can't beat them, let's buy them out, which they did. And they're probably still buying certain brands, Fiat may sell 3 of them. When the new CEO gets in hot seat, into office I should say, and they are getting really good at building cars. Don't get me wrong, the quality of their vehicles is up to scratch, and it's at the same level as European ones. And the fact is, most European car manufacturers, like Mercedes, and there was another Chinese group which made engines with Renault for Mercedes, and Renault sold out all their shares to this Chinese company, and it's Chinese companies which are making engines for Mercedes. And obviously there are some models which are produced in China, of the BMW, and probably the engines are supplied by some Chinese company. What does this mean? Obviously the European Union started shitting themselves because the European market will be flooded with cheap Chinese cars. It's a bit like Japan in the 1970s and 80s regarding the electronics and motorcycles done with cars, which had destroyed certain industries in certain countries, like in the United Kingdom in the 70s, because they were good enough to produce vehicles of good quality and a more cheaper price than their competitors. The fact is, the Chinese have done the same thing, but they have acquired some known brand names of Western car makers, and if this is a trend for cars, whether they are electric, hybrid or petrol, this will be the same thing. Those who will produce two-wheel vehicles, you've got 3 options. You sell out to them, or you do a partnership with them, or the third is you compete against them, which in the end you're going to lose and you're going to go bankrupt, because at the end of the day, their manufacturing capacity, they can do great volumes at a more competitive price, and sometimes a more higher quality level of a product, basically. And this is probably the motive why here in Italy, after this madness of EVs, the manufacturers in each respective country receive government money to produce it. In the end, they never sold these things because they didn't profit. And obviously, the Chinese are going to profit of the difficulties of Western car makers due to this and all that bureaucracy regarding emissions and shit like that. And they can make a product at a more competitive price. I don't think a person will spend 40,000, 60,000 on a car, which probably a Chinese brand can knock it out for 20 or 25,000 euro. Same thing, basically. It could be based on the Western model of a car, known brand name, which they own the rights to it to manufacture because they own it. And it's useless moaning about Chinese products which are shit. Probably European cars which you have recently bought, like from Stellantis, they have those crappy PureTech engines which are maybe in China, and the good stuff they make home to be exported. That's life for you.